He's helped out the bottom lane. Well, is it any surprise that Snowflower has started to roam a lot more into the mid lane? If we remember the KT arrows, how much help did Hachani give to just wandering into the mid lane for Rookie with Kakao and really snowballing that, while Arrow just played safe at the bottom side and they kind of just let him hang out to dry? I'm seeing a lot of similarity in the way that Anarchy plays around the mid lane with the support to what we saw the KT arrows do.
Well, that's why it's kind of hilarious. They had an interview and they're like, yes, Hachani's come out, really helped our 2v2 laning. Apparently his advice was, just pack up and leave him. It's all good.
Pretty funny stuff. Well, there's a Zed ban against Mickey, and that is becoming increasingly necessary when Anarchy has the red side, as well as Azir versus Sassen. 3
mid lane bans on patch 5.11, super interesting to me. What were you seeing in terms of pick and ban trends yesterday? Because I only caught some of the games.
Well,
what was sticking out?
I mean, the priority doesn't seem to have really changed in this patch. We still see a lot of the Callista, the Rise bans, etc., especially on the red side. Alistair, Grog is still first pick worthy. The Zed and Ahri are surprises, but this is them trying to deal with Anarchy's pocket picks right here.
That's at least 3 out of the 6 MVPs that Mickey has picked up were on the likes of Zed and Ahri, so just a lot of respect.
The problem is that Mickey has diversified. Remember, he's on red side. He can play that Kassadin. He can play Victor, and it's not going to be quite as easy to ban him out as it was previously. The LeBlanc still up as well. Obviously, LeBlanc nerfs in this patch do make her less attractive than she once was.
Rise hasn't been touched, so has to be banned away on the red side. Probably the big champion that pops out to me is that Thresh, the big priority pick for Snowflower. We've actually seen teams start to ban the Thresh against Snowflower to try to curb some of that roaming impact. No support ban other than Alistair put out by SBENU, and it doesn't necessarily look like they'll prioritize that as the first pick. A lot of strong junglers available at the moment.
I think you have to take the Gragas here because catch it. The problem that you run, they're going to take the Sivir. The problem that you run into when playing against Lyra, instant lock Fizz, that is a bit of a surprise here.
Definitely a very big flex pick. We have seen one jungle Fizz, but probably going to be between the solo lanes. Can't see a Trundle being locked in.
How is this going to affect things? Because, of course, Mickey is going to be able to play that as well. And, yeah, that is quite surprising. Usually in the LPL, you see Fizz locks this early. Not so much here in Korea.
Yeah, the Fizz priority, the Fizz flex pick nature is a big thing in the LPL. I was going to make the same point myself. Definitely a champion that fits Mickey's playstyle. Definitely something Ixu may be experimenting with, of course. Just the popularity, kind of the oppressive nature of how many picks in China there's been of this Cinderhulk Fizz means that it has been quite a common first-round pick.
And this is very confusing because the Grog is not selected yet. And that's been Lyra has been so good mechanically on Gragas that you'd have to think that Anarchy was really going to prioritize that champion. Now, I don't know how much they care about giving it up to Ketch, who has been an extremely ineffective jungler. So far this season, he's played the Echo, he's played a lot of Gragas. Teams just aren't afraid of letting him have the Gragas because he doesn't do much with it, frankly.
You could say maybe this is the perfect learning environment for Anarchy to try something out of the norm. Maybe don't play that assassin-centric mid-comp. They've already picked up the Fizz, but they're not necessarily bound towards having an assassin mid-laner. We know that Lyra can play Gragas. Maybe this is the time that you show a new threat and force the bans away from Gragas in a future series. Again, we're only speculating. Snowflower, such a wonderful Thresh player. It's always great to see him because it does really help their roaming game, but Anarchy haven't really shown much, and same with SBENU. No comps are really tilting their hands yet.
And, of course, Ixu's been playing overwhelmingly the Maokai and the Hecarim. Those have been his 2 preferred picks this season. So getting it for free right here might be a bit interesting. They should just pick support in top, or they should pick support in jungle right here. They definitely should not be showing too much in terms of that flex pick on the Fizz. Rek'Sai still available if Lyra wants to go for that. He pretty much has full reign of the jungle at the moment. I can't blind pick a Yasuo.
I mean, words like can't are very strong, Monty.
Interesting.
To see the Korean casters gasping as we saw the potential Yasuo blind pick, but as you mentioned, no real reason to do so.
All right, so here's what we know. Songyun just switched his summoners upon locking in that Hecarim to the Ignite, so he's going to be running the Ignite Hecarim instead with the Trinity Force. But will this Fizz be jungle or mid lane is the question. We may see SBENU pick around that. Very odd draft from Anarchy. Right there, you'd almost certainly just pick a jungler, unless this is an early lock for the jungler. Now, we've seen that jungle Fizz from Incredible Miracle, Tucson playing the Devourer. It was terrible.
I think there's a way to make jungle Fizz at least semi-work, but Devourer Trinity Force, going into an auto-attack build on a melee carry and then parlaying that into a bit more burst was definitely not the way to do it. You could maybe see a tanky build a bit like someone like the Echo would put together. What you can say about this draft is it does force a super defensive mid lane choice from SBENU. You have to take the likes of Lulu because there is a very high potential of Fizz mid from a player like Mickey.
And this is one of those points. So we've seen SBENU kind of ape other team strategies. They try and play the Juggernaut from the Coup Tigers. Now they're trying to play that SK Telecom pick comp with
Jeanette
Sivir and
put this
Lulu
together as well and did very good on it. Monty, I want to see the Yasuo.
Do you?
It's not a bad Yasuo comp. They got the knock-up from Fizz, they have the knock-up from Hecarim, they have the knock-up from Thresh, they have mixed damage. Not the craziest time to pick a Yasuo.
It isn't, and it would fit Mickey's profile.
Oh dear. We've been wondering what's in the water in Korea. Teleport Smite Yi has always been a thing, but it's Faker who's trying to push it towards another role.
I mean, I don't think this is the best comp for the Yi, especially with the Fizz jungle, but you do have... I would actually rather see the Yasuo here, but if you have enough disruption with that Hecarim, you may be able to allow the... Yes, mid-echo from Mickey.
This is exciting. So this is a much more meta pick, and it's also something... We want to see these stereotypical assassin players pick the Echo, and now we see the true one, although the flex pick is there.
I don't know what's going on anymore.
Keen almost had a little smile there from Gravity as we saw the Hecarim mid being considered.
Players having a good time. Well, they don't have to lock in their champions until 20 seconds. Those are the rules here in Korea. That gives the enemy enough time to change their rune and mastery pages accordingly if necessary. So,
crazy thing is, I'd say that Echo jungle is more reliable than Fizz jungle.
Absolutely it is. I think that is definitely more reliable, but I don't know if you can play Fizz feasibly into this Lulu with that early game harass.
Yeah, the big thing that Echo brings is, of course, ranged wave clear on Assassin, so you throw out that Time Winder, you can clear the backline from about Merlinomicon or level 9, 5 points in the Time Winder, so you're definitely not going to be matching wave clear with a Lulu who can just freely auto from safe range and clear very, very early, but much more reliable mid lane matchup. Not necessarily big kill pressure, but it's much safer than Fizz, like you mentioned.
Well, this is going to be an interesting game. You and I had chatted. What if Mickey plays Echo? He's one of the players we're very excited to see play this champion. The only mid lane Echo we've had so far has been Coco from CJ Entis in a game which his team lost, even though he had a pretty good performance. But Mickey's the kind of player with those Z tricks that you really want to see on this champion. So exciting times. We're going to get into game one. SBENU Sonicboom versus Anarchy. Wow.
It's very early here in Seoul.
Everyone is super hyped today, Papa Smithy.
It's actually a good crowd, a massive crowd, but the call leaders must just not get off school before 12, Monty. What to say?
Of course, in the middle of the day right now. All right, so do we have hope for this jungle Fizz this game? Will it not be such a horrendous build? I think that this with the standard build, I think maybe it's okay. Maybe like Trailblazer and then just going so you have the a little bit more AoE, and then the Cinderhulk might be decent.
All right, so he has attack speed runes and AP, so that's probably what you need for early jungle clear. You might think, oh no, it's already Devourer, but of course, even champions like Sejuani and to a lesser extent Eve will pick up items to help, runes to help you with your first clears. Of course, items can help you to scale into the late game. Runes just help you get through the jungle safely. Very slow, single target focus in the jungle, but as you mentioned, does he go tanky? Does he try to build ability power? You never really know with a jungle Fizz. There's just no consensus build for this pick.
All right, Mickey hanging back for another potion right here, so going with the flask in this harassment-heavy lane. Soul just going to pop down some saplings there, and we are going to see the junglers start both on the top side of the map and small camp standard lanes. Snowflower on that Thresh that he specializes in so heavily in lane. Soul going to take the first camp, actually. Hit level 2 and then help out with the second. We've been seeing this jungle start more and more in Korea. Instead of the top laner just trying to tank a camp by themselves, the jungler just goes ahead and sacrifices it. And this is really a reaction to possible lane swaps and walking into the enemy jungle, I believe, because that means there are 2 people there in case you do get harassed by a support in the enemy jungle. It also means that you can start a small camp instead of starting at the buff. If you're afraid of that on a weak side. So this is a more safe way to jungle at the current time in case there's a lane swap you don't expect.
And one small thing as well, Monty, is that it changes the timers. We always see the Maokais throw down the sap and spend, what, 20, 21 seconds trying to clear that first camp. Suddenly now, the jungle follow is much faster. Yep. So I think it's just a different use of time. Maybe it's more effective. I haven't really done the timers, but it's something different. It doesn't really change the kind of mechanics or what really transpires in the first minute of jungle follow.
No, but I really like it. I think it's very cool that this is the reaction to what we saw earlier this season where we were talking and saying, well, what's up with this weak side? Basically, the development was, in case of a lane swap, if you started on the weak side of the jungle, and you started at Gromp or Krugs, by the time you got to the buff, the enemy support was in there just, messing with you as you tried to do that jungle follow. In this situation, you don't have the same split. A little bit of action right here. Oh, Secret getting pulled under the turret, has to flash.
Yeah, that tanky on this Nautilus, it doesn't even have a point in the Titan's Wrath. It doesn't even have that effective 10% bonus health. So now suddenly, you're going to have to play that much more defensive in bot.
So to continue my very long-winded point about lane swaps
I'm
and
interested.
jungle
I'm
starting,
listening.
which is, you and I are probably the only ones interested in this. But basically, if you had to get your top laner low off of a nearby camp and you were leashing in some way, it just allowed the support to harass more. And then we saw, of course, the adaptation, which is just started the buff so that you're gone by the time the support gets there. And now you see just quickly doing the first buff, giving that level 2 over to the top laner, and then moving on from there. It does make you more support, harass, independent. Mickey gonna dodge the hook right there on the roam.
Yeah, this time it's actually SBENU who has the multiple members in mid lane. No sign of Snowflower yet, but he'll work his way over.
The ultimate kill pressure right here with the Fizz and the Thresh. Lots of burst if they can get in that mid lane.
So let's return to the point about level 1s. I know the viewers are just standing there listening about level 1s. I guess the only thing I can add to what you said was very succinct and correct, but I guess the small thing that I've noticed about this particular start is that you don't need any extra information about a lane swap to actually engage in this jungle follow. You do it. Your timers don't matter. You don't need to do those deep wards and try and guess, is there going to be a jungle follow? Should I be going for this first camp or not? If you're just following your jungler, you get that level 2. If it's standard lanes, fine, you walk top. If not, it doesn't throw off your timers, so it's a lot more reliable, and there isn't that risk of someone dying on that early jungle invade.
Yeah, so I think it's just a more well-rounded
I know
start.
you like safety, and that's the safe choice.
Safety first, Papa Smith.
In a game with Fizz jungle.
Well, it is Trailblazer this time. So, and we'll see what enchantment he goes. I assume it's just going to be Cinderhulk, the safe way of playing. And, with such a mechanical jungler like Lyra, I'm not really surprised to see the Fizz come out. And I'm less alarmed than when Tucson played it because Lyra has shown that he has the mechanical chops to kind of back this pick up.
Look, I think there are situations where Fizz jungle is fine. It's just SBENU have chosen the most safe lanes possible when it comes to 2 assassins or burst damage ganking a lane. When you're talking about Echo and Fizz, you're thinking of massive burst potential post-6 for both champions, whatever the Fizz is building. But of course, Lulu, the most defensive lane option, can hang back, can wave clear from range. Maokai, again, super tanky once he gets to level 6. And even in the bottom lane, you drop one of those spells with the spell shield and the burst potential goes down. So SBENU do have a very good comp for dealing with the Fizz jungle snowball. And after that snowball phase, what does Fizz jungle really provide? We still remain to be convinced. As they're looking for a turret dive on a level 6 Maokai. Don't know how this is going to work.
I don't think they can go for that this early. And, for those who haven't seen this composition that was really pioneered by SK Telecom, basically, this composition is very weak in terms of damage output in the late game. This is not a comp that you can 5v5 with come 4 core items or so. You have to create picks. It's about speed. It's about finding someone and collapsing on them very quickly with hard engage and the Whimsy and the Sivir ult. The 5v5, just not very strong. There's no damage except for Sivir late game, really, whereas most compositions would run another threat here. So it's about how well they can make those picks. We've seen Jin Air do very well with a similar style of composition, but by that token, the Coup Tigers tried to run it earlier this season and fell absolutely flat on their face when attempting to do so. So it's not easy because you don't play it like a Juggermaw, where the Sivir is in, or the AD carries in front, and you ult the AD carry with the wild growth and kind of bait them and siege with it. You have to be very decisive and collapse all in. Well, here's a gank. Hook misses.
Assassin didn't actually have enough mana for wild growth in that particular situation, so a successful hook could have been a big gank coming through from Snowfire. And I think it's ironic that, of course, the Coup innovated the Juggermaw. It feels like SKT's reaction was these Sivir and Lucian Lulu-based comps as well. So, of course, both of them using that Lulu mid-pick to such a high degree. Jin Air really did ape it well and pulled it off excellently against Coup to give one of the only recent losses in Champions history to Coup, of course, who've been on such an uptick. If you play this comp well, even if you don't feel like you hit your timings, you look at a comp with the likes of Maokai, Lulu, Sivir, and you think, okay, if you don't pick up those early objectives, you might really fall hard. You just get so much speed in the mid-game, and one pick does translate so cleanly to potentially multiple turrets when you have the likes of Sivir, Lulu do excellent turret damage, that this comp always feels to be relevant just because it does so many things and has so little counterplay for the enemy because of that sheer speed from the Windsor.
Yeah, the big factor, though, is you need vision control, and even very good teams have trouble winning the vision game against Anarchy, because if you don't have vision control, you can't collapse on somebody to make the pick. And you have to group at that objective quickly and wait for your enemy to miss position, maybe not group quite fast enough. And I'm not sure SBENU has the foresight or the warding to make that happen. Right here, they do have some good wards, however, around this blue buff. Try a little bit of a steal at the moment.
Orky and Thresh look to be reacting. It's already falling very low. They do use the smite. No, actually, they're able to donate it over. Both of them have a blue, so hard to say who's secured it. But the result, of course, with Catch using his smite, is that 2 blues are over to SBENU, which should help their laning quite a lot.
Yeah, and they do have that early lane bully as well. Mickey going for a Sheen here into the Codex. I mean, basically the way I look at Echo these days is, yeah, you can get the Morello Nomicon. We are on 5.11 as well. And then it's about the Lichbane and the Zhonya's Hourglass. The Lichbane, really key to maximizing his burst on those auto attacks, which he already does so well with the passive. We're going to look for a little gank right here. He's got level 6. He is going for the Cinder Hulk, has the Cinder. Going to be found out by the Sapling.
Yeah, Catalyst was already completed, so once again, ganking the Maokai can be super difficult. I think Morello Nomicon was optional in the previous patch, but 100 mana cost on his ultimate just makes him so much more mana constrained that I think you have to pick it up. Dragon goes down. They notice that I only think of Tucson when I see Jungle Visit. Lyra's on the top side of the map, so they get a free Dragon, so good play by SBENU.
Yeah, and SBENU hasn't had as many issues in the early game. In fact, they were quite competitive with the Juggernaut comp against SKT, but they just can't actually close out or even contest objectives in the late game. They make a lot of errors in terms of their play on the map as the game goes on. But that was a very decisive attempt at the Dragon right there. They know they have that early game power over the mid lane with Lulu, and of course Corki not having completed his Trinity Force yet.
So Anarchy and SBENU, realistically, even come the end of the season, remember we're only just at the halfway point of the season as we reach Saturday's games. These teams are going to be competing at the bottom 4, as we see Mickey coming onto Sarsen. Already a lot of burst damage. Parallel Convergence is down. Will he get the stun and shield? Shield comes through, but no stun.
Sarsen just on the outside of that, expecting it to come through, but some nice harassment. And the Zhonya's is really important for Echo, and because one of the things that you want to do is get that Shadow involved in the team fights with your ultimate. And what Zhonya's does is, because it's a 4-second follow on his Shadow, is it cuts 2 seconds off that follow. So if you can get into a team fight and then Zhonya's and then get your ult in as you wait for your Shadow to catch up, that is one of the most effective ways to play him at the moment.
And deceptively, both offensive and defensive utility in that decision. Whether you want to get in or out depends when you want to pop your Zhonya's, but as you mentioned, cutting down time A new champion. The trade damage, the auto attacks are doing massive damage to Sus, and he ults, but Fizz is here as well. This is going to be first blood, but at what cost?
Well, maybe the cost of Lyra. He goes down. Catch right there to finish it. Snowflower takes Mickey out with the lantern, but leaves Lyra a little bit high and dry. Still, though, kills for each jungler, assists for each mid laner, so pretty net even in the end.
Worth noting that Anarchy used 3 members to the 2 of SBENU, but given the evenness of the trade and the back timings, no CS advantages anywhere. You're going to give the first blood over to Anarchy and the slight advantage.
Yeah, just a subtle edge right there. Nice reaction from Ketch in that mid lane. Mickey with that all in, but you got to wonder, Sasin actually got hit by the parallel convergence there. It seemed like he had plenty of time to realize that ability was going to be incoming.
Well, he died with his flash available, which doesn't seem like on a champion as defensive as Lulu, that should ever be the case.
If you have that mobility from the Whimsy and you have the flash available, doesn't make a lot of sense to get hit by a parallel convergence, that very slow-moving AoE ability in the mid lane.
It's quite so much setup time. You'd think that over the course of the 3 seconds, not even the half-second warning timer, but the 3-second cast time, that you could really expect what was going to come out of Mickey and get away from it. Maybe you just use the polymorph and flash defensively instead of using the Whimsy. Either way, it seems like an unnecessary death. Speaking of unnecessary, Secret takes a lot of free order.
Yeah, right there walking into the lane, and Songyun gets out of range of the hook from Secret. A hook also missing for Snowflower. Lyra now down here, unseen for the lane gank.
The unseen Fizz.
Is he the deadliest?
Might prove to be. Definitely going utility build. This is what we've seen of Jungle Echoes as well. Pretty much the same exact build. Sightstone into what we can only assume will be some cooldown reduction. There's always the potential of a snowball Trinity Force, but you don't really want to itemize into it unless things are going vastly different to this game.
And that's the question, right? Is if you're going to do this build on a jungle champion, isn't Echo just better to do it on with his faster clear speed and the fact that he's still going to be doing decent damage with his passive even through a tank build, and he brings a lot more zoning and utility than Fizz does?
See, the only thing I'll disagree with you on that particular line of thought is this is a soul damage threat comp from SBENU, and I do really respect Fizz's ability to just mess someone up in the backline, throw down the fish, CC for a long time. Mickey's going super aggressive, but with the lantern, can get away easily.
Yeah, just tapping.
Free damage.
Yeah, it's a little bit of free damage right there. And Snowflower, really his lantern play with Mickey and that synergy has developed so nicely this season so far and been a key reason behind a lot of their wins.
But that's why Koo was so adept to understand, okay, Snowflower and Mickey definitely on the same wavelength. Lyra and Mickey almost exclusively playing around each other. Snowflower and Songyun, it's not really a duo you have to talk about, even though this is the streaming duo, of course, have had a lot of game synergy playing on stream on the Korean server. In competitive, these two playing together hasn't been a factor.
Yeah.
At least in any of the impressive Anarchy wins.
Time Winder right there, out just to zone out. Sauce in a little bit, take some hits at the pink wards. Ixu and Soul in the never-ending top lane war.
But yeah, Fizz's ability to annoy a single threat has to be respected. So the more CDR comes through, just get in the backline, auto attacks. If you hit the fish, we're talking about the double slows and, of course, the knock-up. So I think that might be the unique factor for the Fizz this game. Is it going to be relevant given just all the reposition and speed on SBENU? Maybe not, but with a soul damage threat, I respect the jungle Fizz.
You have to remember that they picked this without knowing that this was a soul damage threat composition. So
they also picked it without knowing if it was going to be top lane, mid lane, or jungle mate.
Well, we don't know. I don't think Ixu is going to be the first one here to hop on the top lane Fizz. Just
he wouldn't be the first.
Well, he wouldn't be the first, but just in terms of his preferential champions this season, he hasn't shown a lot of diversity.
Still a lot of priority on the home guard boots from Hecarim, despite that being the target nerf that Riot chose to do for the Hecarim. It feels like maybe that initial 1,300 gold isn't necessarily worth the power spike, because Dragon's been started by SBENU. This would be the second, but Anarchy's vision around Dragon, this is actually something very uncommon for them, is almost non-existent. Yeah,
they're just giving him up early right here. No contest on these objectives. Nuclear just going to go ahead, and he has that vision, so he goes and blocks the chain, or the hook right there from Secret with the spell shield, making sure that no counterplay could be made. if Snowflower wanted to follow up on the death sentence over the wall. So, yeah, just surprisingly passive. But can you blame them? I mean, Anarchy's running a composition that has a distinct item power spike with the Trinity Force on the Hecarim, with the Trinity Force on the Corki. And so by not contesting early, they're not fighting in a power trough. So they just have to fight the third one now.
I think we should give Anarchy that benefit of the doubt. It's always risky when you're talking about a bottom 4 team to give them benefit of the doubt about a strategic misplay, but given how consistently good this team, which is bottom 4, but certainly not bottom 4 in terms of vision, the vision game has been, to just not ward, basically they're saving the gold. They seem to be spending much more gold on items than necessarily consumables like wards that has been traditionally their play in previous games. Maybe they have been that savvy to understand that their power spikes, they're at 25 to 30 minutes, not the first 20 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and we're seeing, too, now the Lichbane done. I mean, once Anarchy and Ixu in particular pick up that last Trinity Force, their burst damage on 3 of their champions is going to be enormous. So they have to be very careful. So
given the items that are completed, remember, double Sheen items completed in terms of Lichbane and Trinity Force for the Mickey and Sungyun respectively, double Sightstone. Surely the big thing for Anarchy to do is play around bottom lane, take out that turret and start the split push with Lichbane Echo and the defensive wards from the double Sightstone they've got completed. Lichbane Rush means one thing, and that means no team fights right now. And honestly, against a team comp that basically is solely about rotations, picks, and team fights, that could be very, very powerful.
Yeah, well, it's all about how Anarchy comes through in the next few minutes of this game.
And just set up that split push, as you mentioned. Just try and get it going. And with Trinity Force, they have the power spikes to DPS down a turret if they can get a pick of their own.
So must be getting very close to the Trinity Force at this stage.
Triple Trinity Force, so triple Sheen items, at least double Trinity Force and the Lichbane.
Catch.
Doesn't really have a lot of damage though. This is not Devourer of Fizz. So
no, it's not. Still some further invades here from the Anarchy bottom lane. And Mickey continuing to trade very aggressively, seeing if he can get that parallel convergence. Gets scared though.
Draws out the Polymorph though, so the Whimsy now not available. Ixu doesn't have the Trinity Force, but still playing aggressively around Soul. Getting chipped out of lane and just wants to cause enough pressure, whether that's fake or implied pressure, to just farm this Trinity Force safely.
Implied pressure. These are phrases that you only hear when you have the double color cast going.
Implied pressure. You watch yourself. Well, I've got some implied pressure after this broadcast, Monte Cristo.
I'll have to watch. I will have to watch out for that because, wow, interesting. Not sure what that means in real life.
I'll leave it in.
I don't know if I can handle your innuendo today, Baba Smithy.
So Mickey just, try and mess up Sassen where he can, but just really no solo kill pressure. Snowflower. Around mid as always.
I just like how he occasionally just wanders into mid and throws out the random hook. It's like this is the 3rd time we've seen it this game.
But look, he's not needed in bottom. His AD carry wasn't there, so why not just give it a go?
Just give it the old college try.
And that's why it's hilarious when they have the interviews and they're like, oh yes, we developed this new strategy of playing around Mickey. Meanwhile, in 100% of their games, they've played around Mickey.
A lot of other supports, maybe they take a nice wander topside and try for a lane gank right there with the Hecarim, but no. Not Snowflower. Goes for the old predictable walk into the same side of the lane that I'm laning on and then throw out a Q.
So I guess what's your take on Anarchy have basically spent their early game building damage. Trinity Force top laner, Lichbane mid laner, Trinity Force bot laner. The 3rd dragon is coming up in a minute and a half, and you can think, okay, that's 3 sources of burst damage. Delete someone and take the dragon. But it's going to be difficult against a team that has the Lula, has a lot of defensive and utility options. Do you just try and stay in the lanes, maybe fake down a teleport, and just try and push top lane and start breaking the outer ring of turrets and start the split push? Or are you pressured to fight for this 3rd dragon if you're Anarchy?
No, I think Anarchy has a poke advantage right now, and they will be able to engage upon this properly. Also, Catch, he just got this Aegis of the Legion, which actually isn't that helpful. It's helpful against Corki and Echo, but in terms of the itemization of the 2 Trinity Forces, not really going to help in that regard. So any kind of strong engage from Ixu, or auto attack range from Songyun, it's not going to be that big of an item. Spike right here. And Sassen also still struggling to get that death cap. He hasn't completed it. And he's not going to by the time the dragon comes up either. So I think Anarchy's in a place where they could fight this, especially if they get some poke down first.
And a pick from the likes of the line skill shots of the Fizz ultimate and the Death Sentence coming through in Snowfire. A pick, the damage is certainly there. It's the CC that's much more unreliable when it comes to actually getting that first pick against, as we mentioned, all the utility of the likes of Lulu and Maokai.
Well, I think they have to do something around this next dragon, though. They have plenty more wards than we've seen previously. Mickey a little bit chunked out right here, but he is in control of the wave. And now Anarchy starts to group. They want this Scuttle Crab. And wait for it to... Oops, it's not being very compliant right now. Wow.
Draw out a smite, but there's another one available for catch, so it won't be relevant when it comes to the Dragon War.
Yeah, that crab actually, the pathing on it was a little wacky right there. Kept going back without those auto attacks coming in. So SBENU starting to move in.
Hecarim starting his port though, so home guard pressure definitely inbound.
And they go for this. There's the fish going down. It's gonna miss. Catch just body slams over the wall. Parallel convergence not there. Ixu comes in with the home guard teleport. He doesn't have an angle, however. Meanwhile, Soul is right in the front line. And there you go. Everyone just auto-attacking him. He's going to go down eventually, but so many members of Anarchy low right now. Ixu has to get out. Songyun still at full HP. Mickey, can he get back in? He's getting chunked down by the Glitter Lance right now. It's all up to Nuclear. Nuclear has to flash back. Sassen has no mana, and a very sloppy team fight as Fizz goes back in, but that's going to be an ace for SBENU as Hecarim just can't find an angle, and Soul able to do a lot of work by teleporting directly into the front line.
A big 5-for-2 trade for SBENU. Don't even have to really rush the Dragon. They're going to take an outer turret, the first turret of the game. Lots of squishy damage threats. Remember, Hecarim only just had a null magic mantle. Damage was what's being billed. We're going to see the replay coming through. They just couldn't really fight in this particular choke. There was no pressure onto the backline. You can see Nuclear and Sassen in the backline free auto-attacking, and although Anarchy are poking in and out with Sheen procs, they're just not tanky enough to play like this.
Right, and the big problem, too, is that Ixu went right back onto Maokai instead of trying to zone out Sassen or Nuclear. So he could have made much more of an impact on the back line of that fight. A quadra kill in the end for Nuclear.
Out of nowhere, suddenly starts piling some big items, already are gone for the average blade, so approach the early game in the investment banker sense that we see so much from Siva, really paying off now.
Yeah. Righteous glory done for Soul, so a big team fight win, a very healthy lead for SBENU. But I have to temper this. We've seen this before from SBENU. We've seen them get into the lead in the early game. Now they have the 3 dragons, though. But inevitably in the late game, they always seem to make that error that costs them so much.
Anarchy have definitely focused their early game on damage and just trying to finally force the split push scenario that we're not sure SBENU can deal with. They've taken the outer turret finally, they've taken the blue buff almost instantly, and with triple Sheen items, they're going to keep pushing.
Well, that's the crazy thing. The 5-man fast push here is going to just absolutely cleave through 2 turrets based on all those Sheens, because there's no counterplay from SBENU. They can't get there soon enough. They trade 2 for 1. They're going to go for an early Baron, it would appear.
They have incredible Baron damage. They haven't been spotted out by the smart ward there is from the top on SBENU. There's going to need to be a face check. No, they've definitely got the information they needed. Siva's pushing in bottom, but Hecarim, of course, will be there to answer that.
Yeah, so, but a very favorable trade from behind for Anarchy. Getting a tier 1 and a tier 2 just for the price of 1 right there. And I have to say, grouping then, very smart from them, knowing that they were going to be able to outpush their opponents. And SBENU, their reactions have not been good on the map. They are very slow to assign people to lanes, to get people inbound on defense. And that SBENU's now going to be coming in, but they're not really going to be able to do much right here. Remember, they need to make picks with this composition. They can't really siege very effectively.
I mean, both these comps do excellent turret damage, but it's going to be the macro decision-making between the two on who will get the most in their windows. You have to say Anarchy, big advantage there. They showed it already, just outmaneuvering SBENU despite losing out on the objective game in the early game. can they set up the split push they've really comped around? I mean, even 1-3-1 is massively powerful from this team.
Yeah, they have Ixu, they have Mickey for that 1-3-1, and good wave clear as well with the Corky Rockets and Phosphorus Bombs, so they should be able to handle things. Again, they're going to lose their blue one more time. They've been having trouble with this game, but Mickey, who we know is very measured and very skilled when it comes to the split push, we've seen it from his Zed. This is where he has to engage that and really start to turn up the heat.
So here's the question that I have for you, Monty. Look at this SBENU lineup. Lulu, Maokai, Gragas, Nautilus. This is definitely a lineup that can turret dive. Are they actually safe to 1-3-1, or is it going to have to be a 4-1, given just how many engage and dive tools that SBENU have?
Well, that will be the big question right here, is whether SBENU wants to pull the trigger on that. Mickey,
so many go buttons. It seems like a huge risk to engage the 1-3-1, despite the fact that with all the sheens and damage, turrets, as you mentioned, should be folly for this Anarchy lineup.
Yep. Well, Mickey also went for the Abyssal Scepter this game, so I think a little bit more magic resist, and that's going to synergize well with Songyun and Lyra. Meanwhile, SBENU has found an opening, but they're going to lose a mid lane. This is not a good trade for SBENU. They've committed a... They're going to... Wow.
It could be a 2-for-1 trade, although Anarchy, they're not actually...
TP back up right now for Ixu. They may just want to take this fight. I don't know about this. I think they could push faster, quite frankly.
They're walking through an unwarded jungle as well. There's a lot of pick pressure from SBENU. This is a very risky undertaking from Anarchy.
They're going to go
for
for
the
it.
2 turrets.
They have to fight now, otherwise this will be a giant waste. It's going to be a giant waste.
Yeah, this is unfortunately the decision-making mistakes that you see when we're talking about teams in the bottom 4 play in this 10-team Champions League at the moment. It feels like they could have gotten 2 turrets in exchange for an inner turret. Yep. And when you're talking about the mid and bot lane turret with a split push focused team, seemed like it'd be a given. They have 3 pink wards down around Baron. Gragas in the area, but the Baron pressure from this team is immense.
Yeah, very big. So someone's going to have to face check this. They see Snowflower. There's a hook in. Catches Snowflower up. Box drop. Flash used, but Snowflower is going to just explode. And will they be able to come back? Parallel Convergence going to be zoning out a lot of members from the choke, but the pursuit is still coming in from SBENU. They're so tanky that there's just not enough damage. Songyun fleeing, as is Lyra. Has to use that summoner heal to get Lyra out. Still going to fall to Sivir. And here is Nuclear powering through onto Songyun. Songyun backing off right there, but this is...
hilarious.
Hilarious. Yes.
As Sassen was doing exactly no damage whatsoever to Ixu. SBENU move on to the Baron. They pick up Lulu in the swap. It's still 9,000 health on the Baron.
Ixu still has teleport here, too. He doesn't have time to go back and get the home guard, but they're going to turn. There is the damage onto Ixu again. Soul will pick him up, but that means no Baron, so mission successful as far as Anarchy's concerned.
And Lulu just got too cute coming to the Baron in the safest, in the riskiest possible manner, not taking a safe route and going around the choke. Went straight through it and got picked off by the 2 members still up from Anarchy. They might even pick up a turret in mid also. Going to get a lot of chip damage onto it at minimum. I guess we shouldn't be surprised given the fact that these are 2 of the bottom teams, but definitely some strategical misplays in the last few minutes.
And they're probably going to get this dragon as well. Songyun needs to stick around and go for it, actually. They have the dragon live. There's no one on the map right now who can actually contest this. They just gave up the dragon as well with Songyun going back, it would appear.
Wasn't very healthy, and I guess they expected SBENU maybe to have some
Songyun
wards
was
around
fine.
the area.
He just didn't have mana. He was perfectly healthy, and he has a blade as well, so he would have healed up off the dragon. But they're going to wait for it, and even then, Ixu not going to be using his teleport. They're Sassen taking blue buff. Could be contesting this 4th dragon right now. Man, there were like so many missed opportunities right there. Songyun going back instead of contesting it while SBENU was in base low after the Baron. Then we see Sassen going after the blue buff while Ixu has TP up, and they could have had a 5v4 around the dragon, but everyone's so tentative and scared, and now all of a sudden SBENU may get a shot at yet another dragon stack.
Feels like both these teams may need to file misconnections articles in the newspaper after this one.
Oh boy, let's go on Craigslist for that.
Could be. SBENU have great control around the dragon. They've done this the whole game. Now, of course, they are spotted out by the Scuttle Crab vision. Anarchy, they lost their last fight, but they need to opt into a fight around this 4th dragon.
Yeah, they're coming through. There's the Sivir ult. Now, are they going to turn? Righteous Glorious pop. Mickey locked down by the Maokai. Ixu just has no angle on the back line right now. They're trying to focus down Soul. Ixu going to be the target for SBENU. Catching the back line, but he's going to get blasted by Songyun. Songyun finds himself right in front. There goes Lyra, playful trickster on the backside. Mickey actually picks up a kill in all of that. Is going to ult back for some help. Songyun has to be careful. Songyun getting critted. Songyun going down to Soul. And there we go, 1 for 1 in the end, but jungler traded for AD carry. That's a trade SBENU will make.
It's an excellent trade for SBENU when it comes to trading up in terms of getting down a damage threat, but of course now they don't have really a chance to pick up Baron, so taking out this inner mid tower is probably going to be the most they're going to get from that team fight victory.
Yeah, so still small trades being made in SBENU's favor, but they are accumulating over time. Now they're threatening that 5th dragon. Nuclear, absolutely massive.
Wow, 4 AD carry items and the improved boots. Look, it's not like Songyun's any slouch. He has 3 items, but Nuclear is massive after that very early quadra kill.
Yeah, he is. So he's got to be the one to carry right now, and he's doing a good job. He's playing aggressively. He's getting on top of Songyun, getting the necessary damage.
It's just actually the issue that Hecarim's can have against Sivir comps is that Sivir's unique. When it's, say, Jinx versus Hecarim, Jinx is trying to be cute and poke around the backside. Hecarim can get in there, isolate her out, and try and solo her down. Sivir fights with her tank line. Sivir's right in there with the likes of the Lulu, the Nautilus, the Gragas, and the Maokai. Ixu, multiple fights now, it just hasn't had an angle to try and separate Sivir as a threat. SBENU have a comp that has so much defensive utility, and even with the burst damage of Trinity Force, feels like Ixu's almost a non-factor in fights despite being on a fairly free-farmed Hecarim.
Yeah, although in spite of all this action, Anarchy still only about 6k down. So, and they're going to catch a little bit back up here with the help of this turret. Nope, not going to quite get it intelligently, not committing. There we go. More engaged. Stoneflower knocked up nearly immediately. Ixu wants to get onto Nuclear. Nuclear Wild Growth, though, is just going to kite this one out. No one get down. Fish will hit, but Mickey dies. This is probably going to be it, as everyone from Anarchy scattering, but there is Sasin trying to take care of Songyun. He will succeed in the end, as the splitting will mean that it is nearly an ace and a double kill. Look at Ixu.
Ixu's still trying to play the objective game, but this is just a sign of the times for Anarchy. Ever since the quadruple came around, you're seeing they got finally onto Nuclear. He just had so much lifesteal with the Bloodthirster. Ever since he had extra gold and defensive utility, they don't have backline threat on him, despite having 3 Sheen items complete, despite having a very high damage comp. And SBENU don't have the most damage, but with Sivir this big, doesn't matter.
Yeah, it really doesn't at this stage. And there's the recall as they take the Baron. They couldn't finish right there.
So watching the replay, just watch. This fight is whether Sivir dies or doesn't die. If she dies, there's just no damage on SBENU's side. Gets chunked down to half, but can kite away outside of vision. Even though there's lots of threats, they're all melee threats, so it can just open up space and then just starts cutting the front line like butter. They've itemized mostly for damage, not for tanking. 600 damage crits. At this point, with Nuclear alive, they're just picking up kill after kill, and there's nothing Anarchy can do.
Indeed. Well, see Snowflower at the end, valiantly dueling with the Lulu, but I hate to tell you, one of those supports actually has enough items from being in the mid lane to take it out pretty easily.
Even going to pick up the Lich Bane for both turret damage threat and, again, even more single target damage threat. And Mickey's big debut onto this Echo, just like Coco's, who played very well himself, just hasn't been enough to make anything happen.
It's actually going to be a Luden's Echo from Sasin, not a Lich Bane.
That's okay. Both probably coming in, potentially.
So, yeah, I mean, this is going to be probably it for SBENU. They looked strong this game. They actually did a great job of controlling the dragon, and we thought maybe Anarchy would be fighting in that power spike, but they really failed to get the adequate pick pressure and engage the team fights properly when it came to using all those. I mean, they're still split pushing with Ixu.
Man, Ixu is annoying. Remember, this is with Baron buff empowered recalls. They still can't open up distance enough. Ixu will pick up this inhibitor, so Anarchy's still getting more than they deserve. He has no mana. Flash is expended, so he's probably going to die eventually, but hollow victory for SBENU.
Yeah, exactly. And Anarchy, in spite of this Baron,
yeah,
you know, one thing that has happened this game and why they couldn't end after that last fight so decisively was the wave, the minion control from SBENU has been horrible. Every time their lanes are pushed up, they haven't been able to actually take that many advantages after their wins.
Okay, but calm down, Monty. Let's think about what SBENU has done. Remember, this game they've had much better ward coverage, especially around objectives, than Anarchy. That's already a big win. We're talking about 10th spot on the ladder against, in terms of the warding game, probably top 3 when it comes to Anarchy, or at least top 5. Out-warding them, and then the teleports from Soul have been so much better. He's been the one getting into the backline with the home guard into Twisted Advance. Ixu's been the one that hasn't been able to find an angle, so credit to SBENU for doing things we didn't expect. We're going to see a desperate engage, but you can just see the desperation. There's not even a real full-hearted attempt to fight against this Baron buff comp.
No, you can't, and they're trying to poke, but it just does so little damage against this big tank line right now. Mickey got the stun off on the parallel convergence, but that's about it. They have to trade an inhibitor for nothing. And here is Dragon number 5, Baron buff, still up. Nope, falls off right now, actually. That's actually a visual bug.
Dragon 5. There's no offensive wards around the Dragon from Anarchy. They're going to DPS it down fast, chasing away Ixu. 5th Dragon's going to be just another massive factor. The re-engage starts, and there's the 5th Dragon.
Yeah, here we go. Ixu just ulting out after seeing them get that 5th sack. Mickey will not be so lucky. CC'd into the ground. Will Echo be, and now Ixu's back, doing Ixu things.
So he used the teleport. They're trying to stop the backs. They've done it so far. Ixu probably can't finish the game, but Anarchy are trying.
You got to, oh! He nearly actually got the back onto Sasson right there, barely, and that's going to mean Ixu heading out of this fight, but probably the end of the game coming up as the double kill from Sivir lands. Ixu escapes.
The world's shallowest lantern from Snowfire just couldn't save the poor mustached Bombardier.
You have to respect Ixu and what he's done this game so far. I mean, in spite of Anarchy's loss, he has made this a million times harder for SBENU. Ixu going to come in right now. He's got the last stand of Hecarim going down for a big play from Snowflower, but he's going to get yanked around and into the grave, and that's going to be it. SBENU's actually going to close out their 2nd game win as they grind through the rest of Anarchy, and that's going to be it. SBENU up 1-0 in this series, surprisingly.
But this is at least a SBENU win where you look at the game, and much like we have with Samsung Galaxy over the course of the season, you say, okay, there are things that they were actually putting together both selfishly in terms of team play that actually showed some promise. What you want to see from SBENU is a team that in the back half of the season can be competitive. And look, we're not going to rush to any rash judgments. It is only a win against Anarchy, one of their fellow strugglers, but still SBENU showing a higher level performance than they have in their preceding, what, 17 games?
Yeah, and Anarchy has to have more jungle presence. You know, this jungle Fizz really wasn't that useful this game, and because they didn't have that force early on to fight, they just couldn't do much around. The Dragon gave up every single Dragon in this game, and never really had that ability to control the tempo except in some very late game split pushes.
What are you saying? Are you saying to me, Monte Cristo, that this hasn't made you a believer of the first round ambiguous Fizz lock-in?